we're not going to bring it up too much, but one of our main focuses and reasons for doing this is we have a new book coming out. So if you guys can mention that in how you're explaining us, it's Alexi Panos, Preston Smiles.
All right, perfect. Well, all right. So guys, this is Damon with MBTI. Welcome to a very special show. We have Preston Smiles and Alexi Panos here. They're both, I believe, life coaches. They are releasing a new book. Did you guys co-author that book?
We sure did.
We did.
Oh, that's really exciting. So we're gonna definitely promote that here in a little bit and let the audience know that book is soon to be released or released now. Which status is it?
December 27th, it's out, but you can pre-order it now.
Okay, great. So yeah, you guys can pre-order this. We'll talk about that a little further as soon as we get to know them a little more. So without further ado, we got Alexi Panos and Preston. Blake, I'll let you kick this off as far as starting out with some really open-ended questions to get them to share a little bit of their experience, and then we'll kind of do a little roundtable work and see what we can get. All right, so Blake?
Definitely. Okay, so first off, how old are you guys? You seem like you have a lot of wisdom for your age. You look pretty young.
Well, what would you guess? Let's play the game real quick.
Okay, 24.
24, got it.
I'm really good at guessing age. So my guess here is,
the same age.
I want to guess 25 and 27.
25 and 27. Who's 27? Who's 25?
She's 27. You're 25.
Oh, wow, that's messed up.
I've got that spiritual flow too. I'm really great with knowing people in that way. I don't know why, but
awesome. Yeah. So do we have one more guess before we tell you guys home?
I'm going to guess, and I'm going to say old enough to be great life coaches.
Awesome. That's it right there. So I'm 36. She's 33.
And I'm 33, yeah.
Wow.
Well, all right, perfect. Trey didn't want to guess. He was like, I'm not doing this.
I'm taking myself out of this.
Yeah. So, okay, perfect. So, Blake, go ahead with your starting questions, and we'll go from there.
Oh, hey, yeah, let's just hit the ground running. So you're in your early 30s, mid 30s. What was the age that you really got invested into personal development, spiritual development? Because, I'm sure you weren't like this since you were born, right?
No, I mean, it's always an evolution, right? For me, I got involved at a pretty early age because my mom was into psychology. She's a psychologist, and was always listening to books on tape. So Marianne Williamson, Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer, and my parents lived 8 hours apart. So we had these 8-hour road trips of just like programming the subconscious mind with all this great stuff. So it started at a young age where I was introduced to it. Where I really started taking it on was in my teens. And my first Tony Robbins event was 16. I did landmark education at 18 and just really took the deep dive in my 20s and studied the esoteric ancient stuff then.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
what about you?
For me, I didn't get into it until I was essentially 27. At 25, so it was very recent in essence. I was in a gang. I was in special education classes. I wasn't necessarily like this. I was a leader. It just was the difference of where I was leading people to. So yeah, at 25, I got sick. I had something come up with my heart. And because I got so scared, I did some research and started looking into diet. And somebody handed me a book, actually this book, which is so hilarious. Somebody handed me this book. This is the first book I ever read that was personal development. It's Ask and It Is Given. And I got maybe 3 to 5 pages in, and it said, your thoughts become things. And I dropped the book. And I was like, what the hell is that? And I was super upset because I had never heard that. I was 25 years old and I had never heard that we create our reality and that our thoughts become things. And so
you had a little existential crisis there, didn't you?
Exactly. I'm like, what the hell is this? Nobody I know knows that. And so I went through this process of like, oh, there's more that we haven't been taught. There's so much ancient wisdom that isn't being given to the layman, to the regular people in the neighborhoods. So I made it my mission to dive into all of that stuff, and I started, filling my cup in such a way that I could give from the overflow, and people friends and family started saying, oh, Preston's like a little Buddha now. He's woken up. And everybody like, you know, started coming to me for coaching, which I didn't know was coaching at the time. I just was like sharing wisdom. And yeah, exactly.
So in your journey, what has become the most useful tools or resources that you've always, you know, fallen back to help people or yourself?
To help people or myself?
Yes, because here we use MBTI as a tool to really help people, NLP, Enneagram. I'm curious what you guys use.
Yeah, all those are great. I would say the best tool that I have, and I'm sure Preston would say the same thing, is myself. Mm-hmm. And it's the deep trust and the deep connection to that which is greater than me.
Yeah.
That is my absolute greatest tool. Now with that, especially when I'm working with other people, the best tool that comes through that is listening and being really, really intentional with my listening. And the thing is, with a lot of coaching modalities, a lot of coaches have a lot of tactics that they want to just kind of show off and prostrate with and say, oh, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you this, look at this, look how great of a coach I am. Really, the best coaching is when your client is talking and they're saying something, but underneath it, there's something coming through. And to be able to listen for that thing, which is not said, is the greatest tool when working with someone else.
We typically call these unexpressed needs too, where we look for, and that's part of our process as well, is looking for what they're not saying. Because a lot of people, they think, at least in my experience, a lot of people, they think they have an X problem, but it's actually a deeper problem.
Oh yeah.
And so it's those word cues. What is your experience with you're using those word cues, and what kind of things have stood out to you in your experience in saying, okay, we have these people coming to us with this similar problem. Have you been able to draw any connections between word cues and actually symptoms or attachments they have underneath?
Yeah. I mean, at the core, everybody has the same needs and wants. We have all the same desires. And so they get dressed up in different clothes, and some of them have hoodies on, and some of them have backpacks. And no matter what the leaves are, the roots always come down to wanting to be loved and hoping and wondering, am I enough? And so this worthiness conversation that is underneath at the root of most things that are happening on our planet is the thing that we always end up coming back to. For me, one of the biggest tools that I support myself with and my clients is breath. We forget to breathe. And the moment we have more oxygen in the brain and we change and shift our physiology, we have more space to discover what it is that is in our way and to reveal what's already here that just needs, you know, a little polishing. Because really, to me, that is one of the biggest things that I support people with, which is not becoming, but revealing. Revealing how freaking awesome they already are. There's nothing, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to get, it's already here. And the moment we can really tap into that and sit in it and just go, I am an absolute genius. What Einstein could tap into, so could I. What Jesus could tap into, so could I. And that's a hard pill for some people to swallow at first, so I don't necessarily just come in like that. But, you know, it's a process.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what makes it really interesting, because we have an NLP, I use a technique called core transformation. And I find that at the very core, it's the very same thing that everybody wants, and it's oneness.
Yeah.
After you dig, and you dig, and you dig, you find oneness at the very center of everything else, even love and belonging, acceptance, appreciation, whatever. You keep digging and you find that oneness is at the very, very bottom. And that's been the universal qualifier I've seen with every single client. There's no exceptions, at least as far as in my coaching experience thus far.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, I love that you brought that up too, because I think in a way what we call wholeness. You know, I think so many people are on this quest, especially in our modern world, to get more, to be more. And it's all to kind of fill this void that they're not feeling their wholeness. They're not experiencing their wholeness. And the work that we do is bringing people back to the remembrance of their wholeness, their oneness with everything. And it's so simple, right? Conceptually, we can get it, but tangibly, experientially, how do we get our clients to really feel it and to really get it and not just believe it, but to know it deep in themselves. And that's been the greatest challenge and also the greatest reward for us in our work.
Well, that's really exciting. I'm curious to how you've actually connected the wholeness concept or the oneness to a lot of your esoteric studies. That would be a very fascinating conversation. I know we don't have enough time to go through all of it because I'm very fascinated by esoteric history in general. So could you give a summary of kind of where, Alexi, like you really connected it with some of your previous studies and your esoteric studies and kind of understanding how you see consciousness or wholeness now?
Yeah, you know, I think it's so funny because I went deep into kind of the Eastern mystical traditions for a very long time. And then I went deep into the Western psychological and transpersonal traditions. And for me, what I'm recognizing currently where I stand is that it's all the same. You know, we're all talking about the same thing. And at the core of what we're talking about is energy, it's frequency, it's vibration. And science is now, which is really exciting, science is now catching up to the esoteric ideas. And super long conversation short, what's really exciting for me is understanding that everything has a vibrational frequency and a vibrational currency. And when we tap into our wholeness, we tap into the fullness of our vibrational currency. That vibrational currency then radiates out and attracts like unto itself. So thinking about that is really exciting because that's where the human potential really like gets activated and turned on, is when we activate our whole vibration. But you start looking at the external conditioning and things like this, our cell phones and our computers and the media and all these things that are sucking our vibration dry, and we wonder why we're having a less than stellar experience of life. It's because we have so many energy depleters in our life versus, you know, energy givers. And like Preston was saying, filling our cup and giving from the overflow is really about opening ourselves to the source of energy that we already are, so that we can then create from that high vibrational frequency. And what we create from that space is just out of this world. So that's kind of like the thread is that, and it's always been there, which is really cool. And science is like, yay, I'm caught up.
That's funny because you mentioned how science is catching up to this particular aspect of consciousness, because I've always felt the same way. I look back and I go, you know, there's something missing. I was a total nerd. I mean, reading everything I could possibly read. And I was like, this science stuff is absolutely missing some component. Then I came across the book Power versus Force.
Yes.
And then that's when it started really opening the doorway into what we call consciousness, or any other. You look at all these religions around the world or these spiritual beliefs, and you find that they have the same underlying consistency.
Totally.
You know, when you remove the perspective of our personal attachment to certain aspects of a particular belief system, what we find underneath is the same truth.
Yeah.
And that's what I found really exciting about what you just said too. And the what really stood out to me was that when you brought in the word of light, and that was really interesting because, you know, that we've always seen light in these spiritual beliefs as like this invigorating power. And even in the Christian system or a lot of the Abrahamic religions, there's like, hey, light is where it's at. Light is this. But you brought in the actual physical substance of light and turned it into a personal transformation. That is really cool. I thought that was an amazing thing that you just said. So
awesome.
So Daniel, I'll let you ask a few questions. I got a million, but I'm going to hold back and I'm going to let Daniel go because I can see him itching in his chair. So
yeah, so I kind of had a similar experience, you know, a similar journey that you guys have on. I'm on kind of en route with my own spirituality and really kind of making my impact on the world for the better. And so I wanted to ask you guys, maybe, you know, both of you can answer this in a different way as it's personal to you. How do you affect others, and how do you take that responsibility that you now have, that awareness to affect others in your day-to-day life? And what are some things that you've noticed upon doing that? Because all too often we get really stuck kind of at times taking instead of giving, and that the power really comes from within. So maybe you can shed a little light on your journey as far as giving and that experience, because you guys are very illuminating. You know, you guys are very motivational, and I really appreciate the energy, and I can only imagine what it's like to to know you, where you guys are, to meet up with you. And I want people watching this video to visualize that they can do this themselves. They have that power.
For sure. For sure. So I'll say this for sure. It's a paradox, because the way that I am able to tap in and be a source, a beacon of light, is by making sure that I take care of me first. So a lot of what happens is people go into this process where they start to wake up and they think that they need to give all the time. And what ends up happening is they deplete themselves. They burn out, because they're tying their giving to, this is what I'm supposed to do. But the truth of the matter is that when I fill up my own cup, that's why I mentioned it earlier, when I fill up my own cup and I give from the overflow, that is, to me, honoring whatever it is that created us, whether it be God, Buddha, Allah, Krishna, whatever the name is on the door for anybody who's calling it that. So the paradox is, the way that I fill my cup is making sure that I take care of me. Because when I take care of me, I take care of you. And I also recognize, and this is for anybody, whatever it is that makes your heart smile, whatever it is that thing that just gets you riled up, for me, it's people. I absolutely love people. I love supporting people. I love, being in the process and the psychology of my own self and watching, oh, well, he asked Alexi another question. So what does that mean about me? It's happening all the time, right? And getting out of my own way in the way where I can disassociate. Because I find that one of the biggest issues we have is that we believe our thoughts are us. We're associating the crazy stuff that rolls through our brain as us. And so I can tell you right now, we do interviews, we do all kinds of stuff. And sometimes the wounded self, the Preston, that the 9-year-old that was taken out of the normal class and put in the special education classes, that kid shows up in the space. So just now, maybe 5 minutes ago, when Alexi was asked 2 questions in a row, that kid showed up. And instead of associating with that kid, I looked at that kid and went, I love you, I see you, not today. And so in that moment, I have just instantaneously loved myself into my own light, because I didn't meet those wounded thoughts with aggression or resistance. I met them with love and compassion, and because I did, I let them go. To me, that's a form of self-love, and that's how I fill my cup.
Okay. Yeah, no, acceptance, and that's really interesting that you say that, because a lot of it is like the story that we play, and it just kind of slips up into like out of nowhere, and it's kind of like the ego putting that resistance, as you set up, and that story that we play ourselves, and it's about breaking that chain and just accepting it, moving forward. Like, I understand that this is who I was, but I'm trying to be something new. I'm trying to be the real me. Right?
Yes. Transparency is the key.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to get any of this thing all right. And that's really the issue, is that we're all trying to get it right.
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh, I'm spiritual now, so now I have to be perfect all the time. And nobody can ever see that I have my own issues that I'm dealing with. Yeah. Everybody has issues. Nobody's getting out of this stuff.
Yeah, we all have our own journey, and it's not about kind of being this kind of on this crystalline journey and being the best who we can be. It's about the struggle. It's about embracing the present moment with the good and the bad, right?
Yep. That's it. Embracing the dance.
Yeah, and that's a big thing too. I think a lot of people who are in this field of coaching or supporting others, we get caught up in this idea that we have to be perfect, and we have to show up for our clients in a way that our clients see us as the hero still. And it's so interesting. Like, we work with a lot of coaches and trainers, and we have so many friends who are in this business as well. And that's one of the biggest things that comes up, is like, I feel like I can't tell them where I'm still working, because then they won't respect me. And it's so interesting, because it's kind of the opposite, right? For me, at least, where when I share with my clients, when I share my struggles and what I'm up to and what I'm up against, they often melt a little bit and open up more to me and share more of themselves. So it's such an interesting paradox, like Preston was saying. I think for me, my biggest thing, especially this month that I've been sitting in, is kind of going back to this whole metaphysical vibrational thing, is my greatest priority. And I'm saying this as somebody who's a doer, as somebody who's an overachiever, as somebody who can work and hustle my ass off because I love what I do. My greatest challenge and greatest priority is I need to vibrate at the highest frequency I can, so that I'm tapping into the greatest capacity that I am, so that I can then share and reflect and be the mirror for people of that highest capacity within themselves. So for me, that looks like get the F off the computer, stop working and go read and go for a bike ride or go out in nature, because I can just work because I love what I do. So for me, again, the challenge is really like, how do I keep my energy high? It's avoiding certain things, avoiding. Preston and I don't have television. So avoiding television. We haven't had TV. For me, it's been like 12 years at this point. You're probably around the same. Avoiding news, especially the biased news that's out there. You can still be a well-informed human being and not be sucked into fear. Keeping yourself around high vibrational people. Preston and I have a crew of just amazing rock star humans who aren't getting it all right, and they're still thriving and still surviving because they're choosing to say yes to the game called being human. And that's what we're about. Like when we meet people that are so flawless and are so polished and are so together, we're a little uneasy because it's like, where's your humanness? Where's the real stuff? Where's the grit? Where's the stuff that you go through? Tell me your pain. Tell me your struggle. Because if you just tell me, oh, you've mind tricked yourself out of all that, I don't buy it, And I think for Preston and I, the evolution has really been for ourselves to welcome in all of life, to welcome in all of our humanness, all of our messiness, and to do it with an empowered perspective, because that's the game.
Yeah, and like I just had a really great idea about your coaching and like the kind of mindset. You really want to be, and it has nothing to do with coaching, but like to be yourself and the friends that you just mentioned. There's kind of this idea to be raw, organic, and this desire to be free and to be purposeful all at the same time. Because people respect other people who are through the struggle, who have this personal warfare going on. They accept it, right? They invite the challenge.
And so, the thing is that, if you're not growing, you're dying. So we're forever unfolding. And anybody, nothing in the universe is static. Nothing at all. We know that through science, and we know that through esoteric mysticism.
And we know it through nature, just looking.
Nothing is static. And so if you're not growing, you're dying. And when people pretend like they are not a vibrational match for our friend group, period. Outside of that, we also understand that like everybody's, even if they're pretending, we know what's really happening under that. And so to be a space where somebody, I really don't like titles, but one of my titles is personal freedom coach. Because to me, that's the only thing that matters. Everybody's looking to, have a bunch of money, and they want all these things because they think that equates freedom. But real, true personal freedom is understanding that you're forever unfolding like a lotus flower. And that no matter where you are on your journey, it's still a journey. And when that stops, you're dead. And so the moment we can sort of relax into that and just, oh, okay, so this is life. This is a part of life. And I am the sky, and the clouds are anger, sadness, sexual feelings, joy, harmony, peace. And I can just be in the dance with each one of those things, and as they, float through my sky, I'm still the sky. I'm still one with the one.
Yeah, amazing.
Preston, I got a question for you real quick. And if you mind sharing, let me know. But I'm actually interested in if you can recall the experience when you lost touch, or a experience when you've lost touch with your overall consciousness, and then share the experience, if you want to, if when you first actually started touching base with it again, how did you know that was it?
For sure. So this is a tricky question because I don't believe we can ever lose touch with our consciousness. I'll say this. When I was 15 years old, I was towing the line between good kid and like terrorist. And so at home, my parents would say, oh, he's a great kid. When I was outside, I was spray painting, I was fighting, I was stealing from liquor stores, I was getting drunk, I was, but I was also playing basketball, and I had this crew of friends. And every day we would get in my buddy Rudy's blue Astro van and go steal liquor, sit in the van, they would smoke weed, I wasn't smoking at the time, and we would drink and just be stupid kids. And one particular night, a friend of mine called, my best friend, Scott, called and said, yo, we going out. And I was like, I got a game tomorrow, I'm gonna chill. And he was like, don't be a beep. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna be a beep tonight. We hung up the phone. Within an hour, and I'm not sure if you guys do this or did this where you grew up, but like, you ever have a friend and you'd be like, shotgun, and everybody be like trying to call front seat? You guys ever have that experience where you, okay, so.
Yeah, with Trey, he's ruthless with the shotgun. Yeah.
Exactly. So Scott was that friend of mine. So him and I would yell shotgun to try to get front seat in the van because neither one of us had a driver's license. And this particular night, I didn't go. So Scott got shotgun. An hour after that call, they pulled up to a 7-Eleven convenience store, and a guy who was very distraught pulled up next to them. And Scott, being a 16-year-old kid, looked over to him and kind of gave him a heads up. And the guy said, what the F are you looking at? And Scott, being a 16-year-old kid who was not very, not thinking anything of it, said, I'm looking at you. And the guy got out of the car and shot him in the head. And he died immediately. He shot every single person in the van. Now, I share this story, and I'm going to go backwards a little bit. Me saying no to that was my first understanding of intuition because something in me said, don't go. This was the first time I had a true understanding of like God voice, first thought, intuition, telling me, don't go. My whole life I have been guided this way. It's how I even met Alexi. I was on a blind date that I didn't want to go on, but intuition said, go. And I knew enough because I've been in the practice of listening to that intuition, God voice, higher self, to go on that date. And because I went on that date, I ended up sitting next to Alexi, and we're married now. So that was the beginnings. It's kind of a sad story, but I also understand that the moment we say yes to life, we also say yes to death. And all of us would love to go die in our sleep when we're 80. But the truth of the matter is that people have to leave when they have to leave, how they have to leave. And that this is not the greatest place on the planet. There are many more dimensions that have just as beautiful experiences in them. And so that's where Scott is. Rest in peace. Yeah, I'll leave it there. And then if you want me to answer the second part of the question, I will. But like that's where it started.
I'd love you to answer the second part of the question. That would be awesome.
When I got sick at 25, like I said, I dove down the rabbit hole. I watched every conspiracy theory movie you could watch. Somebody handed me Asking It Is Given, the book, and I started going through this process. And I'd say a year later, I started to have experiences where I could tell that something other than me was speaking. The me that I knew, the Preston that I knew, was not necessarily there. And if it was a higher version of him when people would come to me and ask me questions, which is why I created a YouTube channel called Questions with Preston. The whole reason for that happening was so many people would come to me. I didn't even know I was a life coach. I wasn't charging. It wasn't anything. I was an actor, on Entourage and a bunch of commercials and stuff like that. I was doing that. But on the side, I was like, there was, I don't remember which client it was, but there was a point when something came through and I was like, oh, I'm being used. I'm a vessel for something bigger than I can even comprehend at this point. And that tool has been honed over the last 10 years to the point where now I can open that space up and really go there. We have a visitor.
I think it might be Kyle.
It's Kyle.
Kyle.
Yeah.
I have a question, Preston.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, when you do those videos, questions with Preston, I actually really liked them. I was watching them the other night.
Yeah.
And I was kind of curious how those come about, like how those thoughts come about. Is that something you read and kind of transform into your own thing, or is it something that just comes to you from things you see around you? I was just kind of curious as to how that comes about.
Yeah, I'll let Alexi answer this one because she does the same thing, and we're very similar, which is why we've attracted each other and are married. I'll just say this. 90% of what you see, 99% of what you see is unscripted. Every once in a while, we'll do something where we're like, oh, let's actually say something that we want to say. The rest of it is isness. So do you want to explain how we actually get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, we travel the world, and we travel with, right now we're using literally a rig on our iPhone 7s. But prior to that, it was just, a Canon 70D. And when we'd find a beautiful spot in nature that inspired us from its beauty, we'd stop, pull over, pull out the camera, look through our phones. We've got like literally a note of just all these ideas, downloads that pop in. So we could be in the shower and a really dope metaphor will come to our brain, or we could be out in nature watching something happen and it's like, ooh, I should do a video on that. And we just got this little list of reminders, and then what we do is just look through the list of reminders, see what resonates, and again, that's that intuition, like what's hitting right now. And whatever's hitting, we just look at it, turn off the phone, turn on the camera, start shooting, and it's what you see is usually just one take of just flow of consciousness.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
For sure, man. For sure. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun at this point. It's some people would call that channeling, and it may be that.
Or it's just getting out of our own way.
Yeah. Whatever it is. A friend asked this the other day, and I'm sure you guys will appreciate this. All of you guys, none of you guys are even 30 yet, are you?
I'm the closest.
What are you?
Don't even ask me my age.
I'm the closest. Yeah, I'm 28.
28, exactly. So somebody asked the other day, yesterday, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was like, how do you come up with the content? And like, how do you guys just, you could just be put on any stage and you could just talk for hours. And he's like, are you preparing all the time? And I'm like, well, yes, that's exactly it. We're constantly in the gym all day, every day.
It's what we live.
This thing doesn't turn off.
Yeah.
So when this computer closes and you guys go away, we're still in the work all the time. So you put 10, 15 years of that, it doesn't matter what the subject is. We're going to be probably well-versed, or at least slightly well-versed, because this is our arena. People who play basketball are really well-versed in basketball. People who are, NLP certified master trainers are super into the terms and the lingo and all of that stuff. For us, it's the totality of what it means to be human is very interesting.
It's our obsession.
Yeah.
And it, like Preston's saying, even at night, like if we turn on Netflix or a documentary.
Tell them what you watched last night at 3 in the morning while I was sleeping.
The Connected Universe, a documentary about, quantum physics and a unified theory for everything. Like, this is what we do.
All the time.
All the time. It does not turn off. We have, if we took you around our apartment, we have thousands of books.
Everywhere. Everywhere you look, there are
stacks.
Just everywhere.
Let me see this knowledge.
And it's literally like, it's one of those things, and then we've got a whole thing out there.
There's a giant stack outside.
It's literally one of those things that, people do say that quite a bit, where they're like, you guys, you just get it. Like most of our speeches we do, we'll just have bullet points, and we get up and we'll talk for an hour or 40 minutes or whatever. And people are always shocked at that, because how do you not prepare? Our whole life is preparation.
It's all preparation.
And there's a story about Picasso, right?
Yes.
Who was out just kind of one day.
He was at a restaurant.
And a woman sees him and says, "Oh my gosh, I'm such a huge fan of your work. Can you just scribble a little something for me on this napkin?" And he scribbles a little something, hands it to her, and goes, "That'll be $1 million." She goes, "But it took you 5 minutes. It's on a napkin." He goes, "No, that took me my entire lifetime to learn how to draw that in 5 minutes on a napkin." And I love that.
I love that. So, like, there's something that, and you guys would probably know this if you follow Tony Robbins, right? There's a difference between having a purpose and having a profession, right? Training for 1 year and then repeating that 10 different years, or 30 different years, and then always being encouraged 24/7.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And that's mastery, right? I think a lot of people are looking for the bypass. They want to read one book and regurgitate the information and make videos and become Insta famous and, you know, have some notoriety. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't last.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, a big thing that we really, really work with our clients is this idea of mastery. The training never stops. Consistent training is where the game changes. It's where your life changes. It's where everything levels up. And it's really a matter of understanding that you're always a work in progress. And anyone who thinks that they're going to get there with one more trick or tool or tactic is fooling themselves.
I'm going to get certified in everything.
And it's a fool's game. Like we work with clients who want to be in this business. They want to have a following. They want to serve. They want to give back.
Ego.
But A, they never feel ready enough because there's 1,000 different certifications you can have. And B, they're looking for the way to be the hero. They're looking for significance. And
which we all are.
We all are.
But having it be your number one
different levels
is probably an issue.
So it's just an interesting game, and it's such a complicated web. And no one person is the same, but yet we're all unified in this idea of searching for our wholeness. We all want to feel whole and come back to that space.
So if I were to summarize correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, just to make sure I understand you guys' philosophy, it is essentially put yourself first.
Yep.
And, you know, through that, the other attachments to, you know, I want fame, recognition, money, power, whatever it is that people are seeking on the surface will naturally start falling away on its own and yet fulfilling itself at the same time. Yes,
that's exactly it. Because here's the thing. I've never had more money than I do right now. But I've never given any fucks less than I do right now. And the more I'm detached from it, the more it just like follows me. It's like, oh, do you want more? Here, take more. And like, it's because that's not the primary goal. Goal is to actually really love myself in such a way that anybody I come in contact with sees themselves and sees their own power. And like, that's the truth. That's actually how I feel. And therefore, the universe is just matching that. It's going, yes, abundance. I see you. I feel you. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean we don't do work. We work our asses off. I just showed you. This is our freaking like lab. Like you, everywhere you look in here, this is a lab. We are going to work. We are scientists for love. And so, yeah, love yourself first.
And I want to touch on that too, because I believe, and I know you do too, when somebody deeply taps in to the love and the truth that they are, something happens and something shifts. Mm-hmm. Where it's so funny because you start with take care of you first. And when you get on that journey of really connecting with the you that you truly are, it actually becomes not about you, but about wholeness, unified wholeness. Yep. And that's when you really tap into this deep, deep connection with contribution and understanding that what I do affects the whole. Yes. How I show up affects the whole. And if I'm going to show up in a way, why not show up as a solution rather than the problem? And I think, again, the self-work, a lot of people take it a little too far and they become self-involved with it. And it's all about them and they're always processing and it's, you know, they're always stuck in this mental web of, well, that must mean for my past. And there's a fine line. It's such a fine line where you take care of you, you fill your cup, but you don't make it about you.
Yes.
You make it about the unified whole.
And in our book, Now or Never, that's coming out. One of the chapters we have, which is so huge, and this has been a game changer for us, is Have a Blast, right? So chapter 5, step 5 is about enjoying the process, like actually having fun.
Enjoy your life.
That's how you take care of you. Most people are, like she said, they're stuck in this, I gotta get there, and I gotta get there, and they're constantly.
Or I have to understand why I'm still
pull it
in
all
this
apart
thing.
and analyze the entire thing in order to know. And once I know, then what the fuck do you do with it then?
Yeah.
If you're not having fun, you've missed the entire boat. You've missed it. You've missed the entire thing. And we've all heard and seen reports of the dying that said, if I had to do this thing over again, I would make more mistakes. I would play harder. I would jump in way faster.
I would love more, give more of myself.
Because all the learning happens in the game.
Yeah.
And in the game is where it's fun. We can make this, the only reason I do what I do is because it's fun.
Yeah. We literally had a conversation the other day where we were like, if we didn't do this, what would we do? Because
I'd surf.
But like for passion, for work, like we love what we do so much, and it's so consuming. It's like when you're first in love with somebody, and we've been first in love with this career for years, decades at this point. And it's just like that you just want to be around it all the time. You just want more. Like just want it around you all the time because it's that intoxicating and it's that expanding.
So I noticed that, one other thing I do want to stress, because I think a lot of our audience is curious too, is that you guys mentioned, and I just want to summarize, try to get, in a sense, rephrase you guys' philosophy. Don't be attached to non-attachment.
Yeah.
And if you prioritize being this spiritual person, ultimately you've created another layer of attachment.
Another dogma.
And,
Totally.
Yeah.
And so that's the key. And it's actually to tap into your own love and enjoy what you really do and find that passion. And as a result, everything kind of comes about to being who you are. But it's tapping into who you are. And it's no longer about, what do people think of me? How do people see me? I want to be spiritual and I want to guide people on a spiritual quest. That's all attachment ultimately. Sure, we're going to have those thoughts go through our mind, but don't become attached to the thoughts. Be the sky, as you put it.
Mm-hmm.
And so just kind of rephrasing what you guys have hashed out. Out of respect for you guys' time, you mentioned 45 minutes. We're at 46 minutes right now.
Perfect.
So I want to make sure that we wrap this up and be respectful of you guys' time. And so if you guys have any last comments or questions, feel free to share for any of our audience here. This video will be on our channel, so anything you'd like to add. I do want to promote your book. Would you mind showing your book one more time and get people, make sure you pre-order this. And so Now or Never. And, so it's co-authored by both these wonderful people. And so please tap into that and get that ordered and read it and enlighten yourself a little more. Always be on the pursuit for knowledge. I have a profound passion for reading, so I'm going to be ordering that book as soon as I get off this call.
Awesome. One thing I want to leave as like last words from me, because I'm an avid, voracious reader like you are. I love knowledge, and the quest and the thirst for knowledge is so beautiful. And take that knowledge and embody it. Like, so many of us are on a race to get more. I need the next book. I need the next information. Take one thing from one book and embody it. Like, truly, because that's when everything shifted for me. Because I had read probably 500 books by the time I was 21. And I knew a lot, but I wasn't living a lot of it. So the thing I want to impart, if I can save you any time, listeners, the biggest thing is, everything that you take in, whether it's a video, a book, a conversation, make sure you're actively taking one nugget from that and trying it on for at least 30 days until it becomes embodied, because that's when everything shifts for you.
Yeah. And I remind you that most people are dehydrated, that they don't drink enough water. So, A, drink more water than you think you should be. B, make sure you're breathing all the way into your belly, and then bring in an awareness to what you're experiencing. Because when we stop and slow down to the speed of wisdom, we open up the space for whatever is the isness that created us to have a conversation with us. And that voice, first thought, God voice, higher self, is always, in all ways, guiding you, leading you forward, if you can hear it.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much, and we really appreciate it. I'm very honored to have you guys here. And guys, make sure you subscribe to their channel as well. Questions with Preston or for Preston? With Preston. So questions with Preston. Notice how he walks alongside you instead of for being the expert. There's a reason for that, guy. So it's all over our own journey, and ultimately we want to partake in our journeys together and realize that we are unified at the core. And obviously during this call, you can see how Preston and Alexi have been unified as well. So both of them are part of us as in this life together. We walk together, we journey together, and we learn from each other's experiences. And that's key. And I think, it's like I said, Alexi and Preston being so generous and giving their time is always a pleasure. And so I thank you both very much. And,
absolutely. Make sure you go to Alexi Panos on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, or Preston Smiles. You can find both of our stuff at alexiandpreston.com.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I wasn't aware of her YouTube channel. I apologize. Yeah, so yes, go to both of them, subscribe. You guys, obviously, I'm very interested in looking at more of your stuff. I resonate quite well with it, so thank you very much. Daniel, Blake, Trey, any last comments for them as well?
Just thanks for being on the call. You guys have been really enlightening. Pleasure to meet you guys.
You as well.
Very much appreciate it. Kyle said hi, by the way.
Well, I'll let you. Kyle, come here.
Kyle.
Yep, for sure, guys. Really, really appreciate you. Thank you for showing up and being.
There's Kyle.
What's up, man?
How's it going? All right, love you guys.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
Peace.
Ciao.